Thanks, Rich. Joining us now, James Carafano from the Heritage Foundation. James, does it surprise you that the Iranians did a British oil tanker?
Dude, they tried to take one the other day. Did you think we're not going to try to do this again? I mean, this is what they do. They take hostages. Sometimes they're college kids on the streets of Tehran. This time it's oil tankers, and they kind of signaled they were going to do this. It's kind of bad on us that they allowed this to happen.
Well, I mean, is that part of the issue here? Like, perhaps there's many different factions, I think you just alluded to, in Iran, that maybe some of them wanted to do a deal and not be a global menace, but there's others that were itching, essentially, to be a global menace, to start some sort of conflict with Western powers. Is that side now winning since we left the Iran nuclear deal?
No, I don't think so. I do think that, unlike the shooting down of the drone, which may or may not have been, the shooting down of the U.S. drone, which may or may not have been a deliberate act of the government, I do believe that the seizure of the tankers is part of a government policy because the government itself announced it was kind of trying to do that. What the Iranians are trying to do, I think is very clear, is they are piling up chips now to negotiate with later. So they're going to take hostages. They're going to try to frustrate the freedom of navigation of the strait. They'll enrich because at some point they expect everybody to come back and negotiate with them, and they want to have some chips in their deck to play cards with.
What I think is so interesting here is that earlier this week, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the Iranians said that they do want to negotiate. They do want to talk to us. And I was on the air and I said, if you believe them, not that I don't believe the Secretary of State, but the Iranians will put these false sort of chips out there to try to make us think that they're coming to the negotiating table, and then they'll do something like this. We've seen it time and time again. But what's so interesting here is the reaction from the oil market, because there is so much more supply globally. And as you mentioned, in the Strait of Hormuz, a lot of that oil going to Europe, the U.S. isn't dependent on it as much anymore. And that's why I think the president is much more comfortable taking the kind of stance that he's taking here and taking that tough stance. But what this all shows at the bottom line is that removing those, getting out of the Iran nuclear deal, putting tougher sanctions on Iran, and getting some of the allies to work with us on here, it's absolutely crippling the country.
Well, I think, first of all, there's two good things to remember here. One is, the Somali pirates took ships, and we didn't have to bomb Somalia to clean that up. We eventually figured out how to do security operations to keep the traffic flowing. We can do that here. We also did this in the 1980s. So right now we need to keep our eye on the ball, which is to keep the traffic going. It takes about 6 to 7 hours to transit that region. Once somebody takes over a ship, it's very difficult to get it back. So you've either got to deter or interdict the ships, the small craft, before they get there. That means you need a lot of presence. And I think if there's a silver lining here, all the Europeans who are basically saying, you know what, we'd just rather not do this. Now the United States says, are you guys going to step up and do this? Because if you're going to do this, this could lead to an escalation and could lead to things a lot worse. So you know what? It's better for you to get skin in the game now and help us out.